Well, it's 256 coordinate units lower. So this is 256 coordinate units lower right here. But scaling is 16. Well, 16. That's how high that cliff needs to be. That's not very high. Okay, just as a brief idea here, but now I need pavement. Because, well, the design document. Beyond the far edge of the river are a bunch of skyscrapers on pavement. Okay, so it's got to be on pavement. And this is where that pavement texture now comes in. But it's not 256 coordinate units lower. It's at the same height as what we started with, 320. Let's move on. Well, that's the edge of the pavement here, all the way out to 64, because that's what the design document is telling me. Skyscraper. At the far edge, 64, grass is used, and the scenery from World 1 is used, minus the large hills. So I think you can probably get an idea that World 1 has large hills. Okay. But 64 is the limit of that, so that means, well, World 1 has grass going all the way out to the edge of visibility. So that's what I need. Wrong order. So, grass it is. So, we're now finally at the point where, I'm adding in all these otherwise endless series of these. But how far do I go? Well, that depends on the contrast with the fog. Contrast basis is 4. You can barely see any contrast between the solid here. This is the solid. See? That's the solid one. It's all one color. And this one, which is actually textured. You can barely even see any difference there. I basically stop at that point because there's really no sense. And this is, by the way, 1600% zoom. Simulating full screen, done using 200%, because I'm viewing at 1920 by 1440, so I'll get 960 by 720 in case you're wondering, which is really close. It's not exact, but it's good enough. So, basically, you really almost can't even see the texture here at all. Sure looks pretty neat already, huh, with all these textures added in. But now it's just the skyscrapers and doing World 1 scenery, of which World 1 is not yet done. And of course doing all these ones here. But you probably remember the sim fog things, right? Sim fog. Well, for these, I need the fog color. Yeah, that's the sky. Sim fog. Fill that whole thing. Looks like it disappeared. Nope. But, however, one thing to consider is, these ground layers, the scaling is actually based on the midpoints. It's for a kind of a averaging type thing over distance. It just enhances its own greater accuracy, with little effort. So, quick and easy to do? Do it. But, what is the opacity? It certainly ain't 100, I can tell you that for sure. Well, that's actually pretty easy. And yes, I know the formula for fog. Basically, this is 96. I'm stepping by 64 because I want to see what the contrast is between that. So, for 64, what I'm going to do is, this is based on 64 to 128, I base it not on the scaling, not 128, but 64. So, scaling divide visibility equals fog opacity. So 8.3 And there you have it. Duplicate, stepping by 64s, so not copy. Add 64 to that, except I need to reset the position. It's 384 plus 2, that's what it's supposed to be. Okay, that's where it needs to be. Same thing here. Fog. So what does this one need to be? Well, it's between 128 and 192. So 128, the closer. 128 divides 768, divisibility, 16.7. Now, look at this. That contrast is certainly a lot greater than this is. A lot greater. So, instead of stepping by 64, it's probably going to have to get knocked down probably to 16 with the way this is looking. Which means I'll certainly need a lot more layers. And this will probably need even more. Probably need to use 8. Yes, I like using powers of 2. But that's basically the process behind it. I just continue on with skyscrapers, doing it almost the same way as this, so, for example, a skyscraper. Let's say I got the nearest one's 24 with the scaling, right? Well, each floor is 10 feet. I need to convert 10 feet into coordinate units. That's easy. 10 times 75 divide 11. That's what it is in coordinate units. Divide that by the scaling. Pixels times scaling equals coordinate units. And that's how many pixels it is. But, in this case, I have to figure out how to work with fractions. Sometimes I drop the junk after the dot, but sometimes I round to the nearest, using that junk after the dot as a clue. Has to be integers, can't have any fractions. You ain't gonna bother with any aliasing either, which is the only way you can simulate fractions. So, in this case, each floor is basically about 3, or 2 and 5/6 as I'd often consider. So for a 6th floor building, 6-story building, it needs to be 17 pixels. 17 pixels, so I'm just going to pick a spot. Too much. That would be 17 pixels. I'd just do the same on the horizontal and just keep reprocessing this again and again. Such a simple formula can get wonders on that, on 3D effects, wouldn't you think? But look at this. I like that effect. That is nice. The grass texture uses the same thing, but it's so close that you otherwise won't notice anything. But that's basically the procedure I used for making worlds. Of course, I got textures for sand, I've got it for dirt, I've got it for almost everything. Sand, oh yeah, I've already mentioned that one. Sand's used for World 4, cover and desert. That one's already been declassified quite a while ago. But it's wise to save frequently. You might notice a difference in the page faults from when I started this.